Welcome back to the What Are You Made Of podcast with Mike C-Roc. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. We have a great show today, guys. A friend of mine from the 10X Mentor Group is where I met Zoe. We have a great group and very supportive, like-minded people. But I met Zoe, and I'm going to introduce her to the show here. She's in the regenerative medicine field with her husband, Dave. She's also a biotech and fitness executive, and I'm going to let her get into her story. But just from what I know, guys, we're in this 10X movement and the Cardone world because it's changed a lot of lives and it's impacted me greatly. And then all of a sudden I thought I was alone in that. And then when I get into the mentor group, I find other people that have been so greatly impacted by this movement. And then we all get together and talk about it. And then we push each other even further. And so that's why I've been bringing some of the 10X mentors on with me to the show to share their story. And we want to find out what they're made of, because obviously they're built differently than most people. And we'll just keep providing evidence of that as we bring people on. So anyway, welcome to the show, Zoe Karli.
Thank you.
From out in Vail, Colorado, where there's snow on the mountains. She just showed me a picture out the window, and I'm not a big fan of snow. I'm a warm weather guy, but I like skiing. But welcome to the show, Zoe. Listen, I want to get into what are you made of?
All right, you ready?
Yeah, let's go.
Get your extinguishers out. I am, since born, I'm a ball of fire. So I've been one of those kids that had to give her something to do. Go do something. I was never a lazy sleep. I was overstimulated. I was a really smart kid. I had to go to school early, those kinds of things, just because my brain was growing too quickly. But I grew up as a normal kid. I'm from a divorced family. I lived with my mother most of the time. I have an amazing father. He was a fighter pilot in the United States Navy.
So let me stop you for a second. So you know about the every other weekend thing like I do?
I very much so do.
Yep.
Yes,
okay.
I do.
Yep. I can relate.
Yep. And then I spent summers with my father and, whatever kind of longer period of time that they determined and such. But during school, and then the problem also wasn't a problem, but it was difficult because he was a fighter pilot. He was gone, he had to go protect our country and be gone for 7, 8, 9, 10 months. And this was actually during war. This was Desert Fox and Shield. So he would send home videos of his flight deck tapes and airplane videos and things like that. And I remember this is like, what are those big things called that go in the VHS recordings? It was that day and age. I don't even remember what that thing is, but those would come home and I'd get a big t-shirt from my dad from being overseas or whatever. And I would wear that every day and watch those videos over and over and over and over and over again. So I grew up thinking 3 things. People would ask me, what do I want to do? And I'd say, I want to drink beer, fly planes, and be just like my dad. And so, those every other weekends were really important to me. And then as I got older, I actually ended up moving in with my dad and being there full time. So
what age was that? Do you remember?
Yeah, I was a sophomore in high school. So I was 14,
15, something like that. Yeah.
Yep. And then off to college I went. I was an ROTC scholarship holder. And then I got a flight seat and I was going to go learn how to fly planes. And then, this is a great topic for your show, which is what are you made of? And I think figuring out what you're made of has a lot to do with failures and successes. And you apply a strategy of how to be able to evaluate something, break it down, make decisions based off of the information that you have and also off the information you don't have. I did not finish flight school, and that is probably one thing that I remember in life the most. A lot of stuff I've gotten over or used it for my benefit, but I was in my flight suit. I left a class. I left one of the lieutenants who told me, you can't progress. And I went into the ladies' bathroom and I just started bawling. The one person I wanted to speak to was my dad, because it was important that I told him that I wasn't going to be able to be like my dad, the one of 3 things. And by the way, I don't drink either. So I guess I didn't do so well on my...
No beer?
The 3 things I want to do in life: drink beer, fly planes, and be like my dad. The latter one, I think I did pretty well. But he was in a foreign country on a very secret mission. And I called my stepmom is my mom, but I called my mom and I'm like bawling. And she's like, I don't even think I can get a hold of him. What can I do for you? And I'm like, nothing. So anyway, I was in there for like an hour and a half. I think I mopped myself up, and I remember having the one thing, I'm sure we talked about a lot of stuff, but it's the one thing that I remember my dad telling me. And he said, you know what? It's a blessing in disguise. You're too good for the military and you'll do other things that'll help way more people. So.
No, wait a minute. So it wasn't that you quit and
No.
you didn't want to go anymore. They just said that you're not going to be able to progress.
Yep. That was that.
What was the reason? Did they tell you?
Yeah, that's a whole nother long story.
Okay. Well, I thought I would ask because I want to ask things that are running through my mind anyway. So
yeah, no, it's good. It was more along the lines of, so periods of my life, and I'm sure people can relate to this too. Like, I'm really smart in certain ways. I'm a very, very tactile, hands-on person. I'm a great engineer because I can look at something and say, well, this must twist like this, and then it has to click. So there's got to be some mechanisms in there. But sometimes when it comes down to test taking, I was never the most amazing. If it was math, I was good at it because there's only one right answer and I can go through things. But there's other stuff that I just wasn't a really good test taker on. So I struggled in that. But put me in a plane and teach me how to do something and piece of cake. So I had way imbalanced test scores.
Right.
And unfortunately, I've talked to several people 20 years ago, that probably wouldn't have mattered. People probably would have been like this and said, the girl can fly a plane, let her go fly a plane. And then afterward, I thought about going back and, I had studied, taken a bunch of tests, and then I had another conversation and I just said, you know what? I'm already 3 years down the road. I've already gotten into the next best thing and I started a distributorship in medical device industry and world. And I was already making 10 times as much money as you would make in the military, maybe 5 times as much as you'd make in the military. And I saw that I had freedom isn't the right word. I think freedom is a very subjective word because it means something different for everybody. And then when I talk about
less
freedom,
restrictions though.
Yes, less restrictions and that umbrella of control. Like if I wanted to work in 3 states at once, I could. I wasn't on orders to only be in Florida for this tour and then you're going to go somewhere else. So, but make no mistake, I am a gun-toting, American flag flying, incredibly supportive patriot. So I never really had any other option to be any other way. My whole family, my little brother though is in flight school right now. So I'm very proud of him. He's actually kind of picking up right where I left off. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So, yep. So he just picked up his next segment that he'll go through and learn. And so I'm really proud of him. So that's good. So it runs in the family and, it didn't end with me because the middle brother didn't go into the military and then it wasn't me just getting out. So there's a little one. So he's going to he's the caboose. So, but anyway, and so that's kind of what made me was that day. And it's the one thing that I remember out of that conversation that I was able to have about 36 hours later with my dad, because he was in a different country under a bunch of other things, but was that you'll do greater things. So, and yep. At that point, it was fear of disappointment to my father that I'm the child, I'm the prodigy. I'm the one that I had been saying I was going to be this pilot since I was a baby. And then, so it was more of I let myself down and then you got to get through that. You got to get over that. And so I love What Are You Made Of? Because sometimes we don't, at those times, this is where I get frustrated with people. Sometimes people will say, well, if only I would have had better guidance, or if only I would have had a better mentor, or if only I would have had this, or if only that, or if only that. Well, at some point you got to figure something out for yourself to get to the place where you can get the mentor, ask for the help. That doesn't just come naturally. And that was a big revelation for me too. It was a big blow. And then I didn't even have a resume because I was an ROTC scholarship holder and I had already screened and been picked to go to flight school. So I didn't need a resume.
Right.
So all of a sudden I was like, holy crap, there's a thing called a job now that I have to actually go pretend to know what I want to do. And I don't know what I want to do. And never really thought about it because I went to college to go into the Navy to fly planes.
Right.
So that was that moment of, I don't know what to do. I mean, I have an amazing father who's a mentor, but I also know there's other people that don't have those amazing people in their lives but all I can say is that if there was that little teeny fire in you, or even if you were afraid, I try to help people use fear to guide them in the right way because it's an emotion that you need to be able to harness and use. And so that's what I'm made of. I get scared. I get the tremors, I get all that kind of stuff, but I think that I really, truly deep down believe so much that everybody, I don't care where you come from, I don't care how much money you have or don't, what your experience is or isn't, everyone can get to the next level.
Yeah.
And some people do it faster than others, but you know what? That's their track, and you should focus on what your track is and ask questions. And anybody, wherever you come from, can ask a question of somebody. You just have to ask.
Yeah. You know, the thing is I notice this all the time. I see people always looking at other people, and they'll be talking about other people all the time. Not necessarily hating on them, but they're like so consumed with what the other people are doing, what they're accomplishing, what they're not, whatever. And what happens is they get distracted from what they should be doing.
Yep.
So I noticed this, matter of fact, today, and I'm just going to share this real quick, but I won't say any names. But I was interviewing someone, and they were rattling names off in the industry that we're in, and where they've been and where they've come from and all this other stuff, right? And to me, I don't know the names of these people that they're talking about. I don't care. I care about that person that's sitting in front of me. I want to know their story. And they rattle off about all these other people. So what I understand that as soon as I hear that, I know that what I need to do is I need to go to him and say, listen, bud, I want to know what you're made of. I don't care about these other people that you're talking about. I don't care about the history of your work wherever you've been. First of all, we're going to talk about where we're going, and I want to know about you. I want to know about you, man. What's your story? Everybody's got a story. What's your story? And when I did that, actually, I did that in the interview. The gentleman was like, and he started talking about the industry again. I'm like, no. I'm talking about where you came from. Where'd you grow up, man? And he was blown away. And all of a sudden, his demeanor changed. So people focus for some reason on all these other things, and they need to worry about themselves. And first of all, that's a negative connotation when you say, worry about yourself. I'm talking about being concerned with yourself and what you want to accomplish and making yourself the best possible person you can be.
Of course.
Right? So what I want to do today, Zoe, I want to get into this topic, men and women roles, okay? And I want to talk to you too about you and your husband work together, and how, like, a couple questions regarding that, and I'll let you go on this topic. But first of all, I want to know about the alignment of your goals. How do you and your husband, first of all, how long have you been married?
Actually, we are approaching a year here in like 3 weeks, I think.
Newlyweds. Okay. All right.
Not newly together, just newly wedded.
Yeah, but newly wedded. Okay, that's fine. Yep. I'm going to be hitting 17 years in May. So
okay, well, I'll be coming to you for some advice.
Yeah, listen, I'm good at it. I figured this out. So
did you good? You and he can go chat then.
Yeah. I'll straighten Dave out. No, but here's the thing. So how do you guys make sure your goals are aligned and avoid the conflict that comes if you don't have that?
Oh my gosh, it's a multifaceted question, but I will say this: communication. Don't turn it into any other complicated word. It's communication. You have to set the expectations in the beginning. You have to ask questions to understand each other's personalities. And you could be married for a year, or you could be married for 10 and still not really understand parts and pieces. Because this is like you and I were talking before we started, that some people are really good at this one thing, and that's their lane, and they're amazing at that. Like we used Kobe Bryant, and that's probably not a very good example, but insert whatever player you want to say. They're amazing. They have the stats, they have the rings, they have the championships, they have the team, they have the coach, they've got everything. But then are they that good at home? And for me, it was one of those things where we don't try to complicate. We don't try to change each other. We try to know how to navigate each other, and that takes a lot of practice, and it takes communication. And we actually are extremely well paired, but in a very unique way. I fly really high. I'm extremely elevated, and I'm an extremely emotional, loud person. I get really excited. My facial expressions are big. Dave is like this. Mm-hmm. And that's hard for me because I'm a giver. I'm a lover. Like, I'm one of those touchy, cuddly people, and I want to see you smile, and I want you to be happy. And sometimes this is for any partnership. You have to know how that other person responds and reacts and listens and hears, and that's complicated. So that's complicated in a marriage when hubby goes off to do his thing and wifey goes off to do her thing, and then they come home and then they're in their one unit and underneath one house, and they've got their kiddos. And yeah, some frustrations come home from work, but when you work with someone and you love someone and you raise children together and you travel together and you grow companies together, it's hard because it's a lot of stress. It's a burden. There's a lot on everybody's plates. you don't have time, and this is where it goes back to the alignment and the communication. You do not have time, and you cannot complain about, well, I do this more than you do, or, I have to pick up our son and take care of him, and you can't do that. So this is where roles get into, where I get really strong about roles and about, what? Balance isn't 50-50. Sometimes it's 90-10. Sometimes it's 22-78. It shouldn't always stay that way. That's imbalance.
Right. That's
but
it.
Balance has to do this all the time. And so, you know what? Sometimes I have to pick up 90% of the load that week. And that's just the way that it is. You can't complain about that. So him having to learn how I am and how I'm redirected is a lot different than, we are not the same in the way that we have to be coached. You have to be very firm with me. You have to be very directive. You cannot do the whole sandwich technique about, honey, your hair looks so great today, and I really need you to do X, Y, and Z. And then I'm going to give you a big smooch afterward. I don't do that to me. I'm like, that's the dumbest stuff I've ever heard. Just tell me what you need. That was a huge waste of time.
Right.
But now you can't talk to him and get him to respond the same way you can talk to me. So the problem there is that if you don't know that, and you're not communicating, and you're not asking the questions of your significant other to learn those things, if I communicated, which is my natural way, like he has to communicate to me, if I communicate that way to him, he shuts down. We are not, have you ever seen Oblivion with Tom Cruise?
Yep.
Where, Sally, the NASA lady, would come in and she would always say, are you an effective team? Yes, we are an effective team. We are an effective team when I do a better job, because I'm the fiery one. I'm the driver. I'm very inspirational and an influencer in that way, but he's an analyzer, and drivers and analyzers can work really well together, but I can't drive him when I'm really fired up. I have to, you talk about communication, you talk about working together. We've had some communication frustrations recently because we're both doing a lot. So in the gym, of course, this is when we work out all of our issues. He says to me, how about we come up with a code word? So when I'm unraveling,
we've done the same thing. Go ahead. I'll share your mind when you're done.
I can't wait, because he says, listen, I know when I'm getting in a place or when you're getting in a place, and if we both agree on it so that we can call each other out, or I can say it when I know I'm unraveling, or you, and it's focus. And so,
because it'll prevent defensiveness.
Yes.
I don't know if you guys deal with that, but I'm the same, I'm guilty. And my wife, Jen, we get defensive, and your ego comes into the way, and you're worried about being right instead of solving the problem. Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, and I'm at fault of this too, for whatever reason, couples that work together, or couples that are really close, they all of a sudden feel like they get a card, some kind of pass, because they're the person's other half. Well, not when I'm the executive director of a company and trying to make decisions and trying to grow a company to a $50 million to a $250 million company. I ain't your wife. So,
yep.
I mean, I have responsibilities that I have to do, and that I can't just put off because I'm sensitive that day, or he said something to me that hurt my feelings as his wife, and how dare he speak to me like that? And that's silly. That's why I go back to these roles. And this does not work. And I think you could probably relate, since you have a code word too, and you guys have been together, and you don't want to be defensive, and you want to eradicate the ego. You have to set those expectations. And then the people have to talk to each other to say, listen, you're my wife. I love you very much. But that's at this. It's not that you remove it from the situation completely. I am his wife. I always will be his wife. But when a job needs to get done, and we're in that moment, and I have to make big decisions, and he has to react, and he has to resolve things, and I can't fill in the wifey card.
You got to departmentalize.
Yes.
It's like that regenerative word.
Yes.
Yeah, you have to, because when you're at the office, your job, you have a goal at the end of the day at the office is to be profitable, make profit, and run the company and scale it and grow it. When you're at home, it's a different goal, different target.
Well, the way we think of it, I try not to complicate things. So you said alignment. The whole point of aligning things is to make it so that it's smoother. So to make something smoother, you get rid of the complications. Complications are what make it difficult. And, I talk to you like this when, okay, so then I talk to you only like this. That's why if you communicate, you become aligned, you set expectations, you know how to, it takes practice, by the way. just by saying this and then practicing it for one day and it went really well. And then the next day it was really trashy because we're human and I'm emotional and he's not, and or vice versa. And all of a sudden, nope, that doesn't work. It does work. It's every day, all the time. And trust me, we fight too. So, and he's not even a fighter, and I've gotten him to fight.
Well, no. And the thing is that you don't want apathy, because you want people to have some kind of emotion involved. Once they give up and they don't have anything, and then you're lost. But, but the key is, first of all, when you wake up in the morning, to make yourself as valuable as possible. Mm-hmm. And the way you do that is, okay, how can I be the best husband today? What can I do to raise the level that I'm the best husband that my wife can have? Like, she would never even run around on me because she would be losing value. That's the way you got to think. Same thing when you go, if you're an employer or if you're working for someone, how can I bring value to the company?
Yes.
One of the things that I do at work, for example, like the company that I work for, Nations, I'm doing right now, I offered to do this sales seminar for the whole company once a month. And it's not a position in the company, but I wanted to do this to bring valuable. I want to bring so much value to the company. I'm not worried about being paid more. I want to be valuable, because if I'm more valuable than they're paying me, I'm in control. And not trying to be like I'm in control, but I don't feel like I'm a prisoner to anyone. I don't owe anyone anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the mindset that I always have at work, and it's always worked. But though, by the way, the code word, I don't remember what mine was, but
you don't have it anymore?
I don't remember what mine was, but my kids and my wife, or I call my wife Delicious. So when she starts getting mad, we go Delicious, and then she laughs and chills out, But I'm not sure. I forget what my word was that they used. I'll think of it. But yeah, so we have that, and then also, like, we come home from work sometimes and the kids don't listen, and people listen to me at work somehow. But I come home and the kids are like totally rebellious, and I can't fire the kids. So I get fired up sometimes. I'm like, guys, I don't understand this. And then she has to say something like, hey, chill out. But yeah,
how old are
human.
Yeah.
13-year-old boy and 7-year-old girl. And the thing is that you got to be aware of the fact that you're going to shoot a little code to each other when you go through this, and you're going to fire up sometimes. It's just like you said, you're human. But as long as you're aware of the fact that when they see that code word, you don't get defensive. Just chill out. Ego. Get rid of the ego. And that's a big word for us this week at our office. Actually, is ego. We're talking about ego. What's your ego getting in the way of? What's it stopping you from doing? Are you more worried about being right than accomplishing goals and getting a deal done? Or are you more worried about your ego and being right than a relationship and having a flourishing relationship? Mm-hmm. So that's what we've been talking about. Zoe, let's get into the roles, the male versus female roles, though. And we talked a little bit about this offline, but give me your thoughts on that.
Well, they're pretty simple. And I think in this day and age, they're probably looked at as controversial at this point, but I'm a woman and my husband is a man, and I have roles and he has roles, and we respect them very much. And if I need him to do something that's a part of my role, then I ask. If he can, he can. If he can't, he can't. And that's it. We are very much, I don't have anything to prove to him. I have a lot of things to prove to our family and to ourselves and our existence and why we're doing what we're doing and the goals that we have. And I am not willing to be derailed from those goals. We talk about them. We're aligned on our goals as well. He's incredibly supportive of me. He gives up and sacrifices just as much as I do, if not more, honestly. And I'm a woman. I do not complain about taking care of the house and doing dishes and laundry and things like that. And if he can help, he does. But also, if he's in the middle of contracts or if he's in the middle of doing things, then he doesn't. And I definitely don't come back to him and say, it would be really nice if you would do a load of laundry. Never in my life. You know what? Honestly, there's been plenty of times where both of us have been so busy that neither of us had clean underwear. And nobody bitches and complains at each other or gets upset. It's just what it is.
Just go commando and shut up.
That's what I said. It's good. It works. It works just as well. So.
Well, you know what I do sometimes? I'll be honest here. So if I like socks, man, we get this is kind of off topic, but the socks don't match a lot of times. And you get this big basket and you're like, geez. So I'll just go out to the shoe store or whatever, just buy a whole bag of them, and I'll get rid of all the mismatches and dump them out because I don't feel like putting them away and spending the time on that.
There you go. That works.
But, anyway.
Hey, listen, I'm of the kind too, and my son thinks it's great now. I don't know where those socks go, but that basket that you have is a perfectly good batch to put them all together. I mean, as long as they're kind of within the same like heights or
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah, the colors
match
don't
them
really
up, and
matter,
I
do they?
throw them into his. Because I let him wear 2 different shoes of the same brand to school. He thinks it's the coolest thing ever. I told him, I was like, listen, you roll with me, kiddo, you're going to be the coolest kid ever. And sure enough, he is the coolest kid ever. But it's the same thing. I told him, I was like, look, nobody's looking at your socks. And if they are, then you have 2 different ones on, and that's really cool. So, it's just little things like that. That's what's important with the roles. The other thing is too, is we both try and work so hard to be the best examples and the role models, 1, to each other, and 2, to our son. And so Bruin learns different things from me than he learns from David. And we both respect very much what that is. And I don't try to out teach or overshadow David or anything like that. There's a role that I play, and there's a role that David plays, and then there's the role that we play together. And we discuss that. We talk about that all the time. And my biggest thing with Bruin is that he knows love and he gets it from both parties all the time, but that he also learns independence as well. He is not a mama's boy. I mean,
Right.
he loves his mama, but he wants water. Okay, you know where the glasses are. Go get it yourself. There, folks.
Yeah, once in a while you get something, but most of the time, like my kids, I'm a big no guy. Like, no,
yeah,
the refrigerator's right there. Grab
same.
it.
I'm
Like
the same way.
But my wife, on the other hand, does more, and then, so we have like that thing, and I'm like, we got to teach them to fish, right? Teach them to fish.
Yep. So that's me.
How did growing up with a broken household affect the way you parent now, or having kids? Because that's something that I've dealt with, and I want to hear your take on that.
I guess I've never really thought about it in that way. I feel like that's how I was raised. Honestly, I feel very privileged that that's how I was raised. Mm-hmm. Because David and I have spoken about this maybe once or twice before, but he's from a very traditional family. Dad went to college. He went to Colgate. He knew David's mom, Donna, in the neighborhood kind of thing. He came back. He married her. They're sweethearts. They've been married for 250 years. They have 3 boys. They're 3 years apart. They grew up in the same household. They all went to the same schools. They each went off and did their own college things afterwards. They have all the grandkids. I don't have that kind of life. My family's huge. My dad is from 8. My mother, my biological mother's from 7. And my stepmom is from 10. And I was privileged. I got to travel. I got to see new different kinds of people. I never lived in one place more than 3 years. You can drop me off in a foreign country, and I credit this to the way that I was raised, and I will be perfectly fine. And I guarantee you within a couple months, I'd be making money too, having not even spoken the language. So it's things like that. I was privileged because I got exposed to a lot of change, a lot of hard, difficult situations. I got exposed to a lot of quote unquote unfairness. And if you know anything about me, fairness does not exist. It is not a word. It should be never spoken in our house. When Bruin's buddies come over, this is how good of a kid he is. Well, every once in a while, he'll say, well, that's not really fair. He doesn't say that anymore because I said, okay, let's try this real quick. I'm older and bigger than you, and I want $100 that you worked for. So where's your wallet? Give it to me. He's like, what? I said, yeah, I'm going to take $100. And he said, well, you can't do that. And I said, really? Why not? He said, well, that's not yours. And I said, let's talk a little bit about fairness. There's a lot of people in this world that take things from other people that have things and they don't. And then it's fair to them that they take it. And he understood it completely. It was really funny. So a couple times his little buddies have come over and said, well, that's not fair. Bruin has stopped them in their tracks and said, fairness doesn't exist. It's not a real word. And then he says, you know what's fair? This is an 8-year-old. This is how awesome that you can really help to inspire kids to think and challenge themselves. And you just have to be the disciplined parent to let them figure something out, make mistakes, challenge. Yes. Does it take more time on my behalf to kind of stand back there and go, oh my God, I'm going to have to clean that mess up. Can you just move so I can do it? Yeah, that's the easy way, but we don't do that.
Yep.
And so his little buddy, he just kind of was flabbergasted that Bruin wasn't going to let him just do whatever because it wasn't fair. And he said, here's what's fair. Chance. We'll play rock, paper, scissors. So that was, and I told him, I said, hey, listen,
That's awesome.
there's a strategy to rock, paper, scissors, and you can win if you listen to me and I'll show you how to do it. And then it's really definitely fair because you're better at the game and you practiced and you know how to play better. Then you can take his toy all the time. So
Yep.
anyway,
Yep.
I'm
That's
privileged. I mean, I think about good and bad things that I think as now an adult when I think back, but I don't think that the way I was raised was good or bad. I just
right.
think about, well, how did that make me feel bad? Or what did I then do afterward? The biggest thing for me is, look, the world's an ugly place. Okay. There is no perfect kingdom. And I don't believe that parents should create this perfect utopia for their kiddos to when then they get out in the actual real world. The first time they're told no, the first time that they're demoted, the first time that they're fired, the first time that they have to do laundry. I mean, any of those things.
So yeah, speaking of that, handling rejection, why do you think people have such a problem handling rejection? It's because parents, it's not easy to do the things I do at home. And a lot of people think I'm hard on my kids. And I don't really care what they think because
I don't
I
even,
know I thought about this. It's not something that I just a lot of times react to, is that I want to teach my kids how to be independent, like you said, and how to hear no. And then
yeah.
I want to hear them a couple times, by the way, like they'll come back at me. A couple times I'll give in because they'll come back at me and have such great objection handling abilities
Yes.
that I'm like,
Yes.
man, that's pretty good. All right, go ahead. But I
Yep.
want them to work at it or do it themselves.
I agree.
And so,
Yeah.
but there's so many parents out there that don't, they give in because it's easier and they're worried about what they got to do right now.
Yep.
And my thing is that, like, you know, a lot of my friends tease me too. They're like, no fun, dad, no fun, dad. It's not about no fun. I thought about this. You didn't think about it and I'm working hard and you're not. And I don't care if that's controversial myself because
I agree.
I thought about this out and I think I'm right. I don't know.
Yeah. Look, I'm on it too. I love, so that was the biggest thing is that, yes, did I come from a broken family? Yes, in the sense of I have a bonus mom and I have an amazing father. And quite honestly, I'm estranged from my mother, but I will tell you this. If you can teach people and be the example that bad shit happens, I'm sorry. So what are you going to get out of it? Are you going to let it hold you back? Are you going to make it so that it's this thing, this demon? I hear all these people constantly talk about these youthful problems that they had and how they're still lurched on and say, okay, well then can you turn that around?
Yep.
How do you find the positive in it? What did it make? Has it made you want to be a more loving person because your parents weren't loving to you? Then embrace that and do that. That's not a weakness. That's not, just make a decision and do.
Reframe,
and so for
right?
me,
Reframe the whole
yes.
thing.
And I was a very confident kid. And I loved that I had all these different experiences. I mean, when I went to college, I remember looking around thinking, wow, these people are just getting out into the world. I mean, I had a job when I had my own lawn service when I was 12. My parents both said, look, we will give you what you need, but that's about it. So if you want to have 6 pairs of jeans instead of 3, then you're going to have to figure out how to buy them. So I made a deal, talk about kids, and this is what I think is great too. I do the same thing that you do with Bruin. Don't come to me with problems. I don't care about your problems. I care about your thought process to solve them. We all have problems. You're going to stay in the poorhouse if you can't figure out how to fix them. So I let him come up with an idea or challenge himself or whatever, but I'm the same way. I say no. And we also have a routine. So he does his routine and then if there's ever once in a while a couple little things that he'll ask for or something like that, we have a conversation. Is that really what you want to spend your money on? Because I'm not buying that. So you need to make a decision. Is that good use of money or is that bad use of money? And then, so I didn't have the option to go to my parents and ask for money. They didn't have any more money to give. So, my parents went through a very dirty divorce. And unfortunately, my mother took a lot from my father. But my father's of the kind of person that said, I can make it back. And I need to make sure that my daughter is taken care of when I'm not around. I don't necessarily agree with that thought process because I don't like people taking things from others just because they feel like they are entitled to do so.
Right.
But
that's what I'm talking about. So when seeing what I did when I was growing up, I thought it was normal too. I didn't know any different, right? Until I started seeing the other families and all. But the thing that I take from it is that I will put up with a lot of stuff. Thank God I have a great wife. Like, she's beautiful as inside as she is on the outside. But if I didn't, I would put up with a lot to make sure that my kids, I get to see them as often as possible, not every 2 weeks. Those are the kinds of things I was talking about. And knowing that I'm going to try, every decision I make is as a role model to them. I know they're watching me. I know that I'm not going to go and chase other women because one, I owe it to my wife, and I would never want to make her feel that way. And I'm committed to her. But also, what are you telling your kids when you do that?
Exactly.
There's so many people, and guys, listen, I'm not judging anyone that did it or does it. I'm just talking about myself. But what do your kids think when that happens?
Yeah. Because
you give in and your ego and your selfishness on that end of things. That's the kind of thing. Drinking, for example. Yeah. You said you don't drink. I rarely drink anymore. But if you get drunk, what does that tell your kids? Like, think about that. Just let those thoughts run through your head. I'm not judging you, by the way, but just let those things cross your mind before you make decisions. Yep. And so anyway, not preaching to anyone, just talking about myself.
Hey, honestly, I think we need to preach. There needs to be, like I said earlier, it doesn't matter where you come from, who you are. I don't look at people like that. I look at it, do you pay your bills and you don't kill people, and you pay your taxes and you try to grow, you expand, you level up, you make the time that we have here, because I hate to tell everybody, but you don't get to decide when you leave.
Yep.
And my best friend's brother was just hit by a bus and killed. Just graduated as a doctor. He was getting ready to do his residency, and it was just heartbreaking. And she couldn't understand. And she and I had this long conversation to say, look, it's not any of our choices or our decisions. And this is why, if not today, from that story that I just told you, decide that it's short and you really do need to make an influence, and don't just settle. And if you want to, that's fine. That's your decision, but please don't alienate and beat up on other people that don't want to settle. And so I try to teach our son the same thing. And David and I have worked extremely hard to be affluent and to be in a position to where we can, because we've earned things, we can do those things.
Yeah.
But here's one big thing from a parent to another parent, and this is the law of the land. Bruin, my money is mine. It is not yours. So the things that I have, they're mine. They are not yours. So when you turn 16 and you want a car, hope you save some money, because my car is not your car. So you will have to figure out how to do something. And that's just kind of the way we are. And yes, I know we can afford to give things, and I know we can afford to have whatever for our children. But now you walk into his room and he doesn't have a ton of shit. And I tell him all the time, I'm like, decide right now, how important is $5 to a cheap Chinese toy where the arm's going to break off and you guys are going to have exploded battle or whatever. You know what he loves the most? Cheap ass buckets of army men, which is awesome because they don't break.
Well, I don't understand why Legos are so expensive. Because they're just pieces of plastic too. But my kids don't like army men. Well, he did for a little bit, but they're into Legos, and Legos are the same cheap thing, but they cost an arm and a leg.
Bruin loves Legos too, and one of the bigger, those things are $100. They're like $80 for the big box.
That's crazy.
Then Bruin doesn't even play with them afterward. He puts them together and then he puts them on a shelf, and I'm like, Anyway, so
well, listen. How can my audience get in touch with you and get engage with you, and anything that we can do to help you?
The easiest way is on Instagram. So it's my first and last name, Zoe Karli, Karli, not the girl's name, Carly. And that's not my first name either.
Your first name is Zoe or Zoe?
It's both. Just there's no Y. So it's Zoe.
But how do you pronounce it?
Both. Just like Michael, Mike.
Okay, gotcha.
For the longest time, my nickname, and a lot of my old girlfriends, thank you for giving me this, but it was Zoe B for a really long time. So,
and Bedford is that your maiden name?
Maiden name, yeah.
Okay, gotcha. All right, guys. Well, listen, hey, connect with Zoe. She's a great lady. I can't wait to meet her and her husband next week at the 10X Growth Conference. We're gonna have a blast out there. And guys, listen, I want to thank you so much for all the support that you have for this show and this movement. I started this movement because I want to make sure that I have an opportunity to inspire as many people with telling their story and sharing what's inside. And people do care, guys. People care You shouldn't be embarrassed by your story. It's not normal. Everybody has a unique story. And number 4, you will inspire millions of people if you have the hunger to do so. So let's just keep that movement going. Guys, subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and Spotify. Go to my YouTube channel, and it's Mike C-Roc Ciorrocco. You can watch the podcasts on there. And I just appreciate all of you guys. So thank you very much for listening. And until next time, it's your boy C-Roc.
Yay!
Thank you for being a part of the What Are You Made Of podcast. So that you don't miss future episodes, please rate and subscribe to the What Are You Made Of podcast on your favorite listening or viewing apps, and follow me on your favorite social media platforms. I would love to hear your stories and past experiences and engage with you further.